And DW correspondent Jack Parak is outside the Vatican on St. Peter's Square. I understand, Jack, you have a guest who can help us understand potentially the direction that the new Pope might take.
Hi, Baresh. Yeah, indeed. I'm here with Father James Martin, who's a Jesuit priest and also a communicator with the Vatican. I wonder firstly if we can just get your impressions. I mean, you know this new Pope personally a little bit. What happened when you saw him come out on the balcony?
I was stunned. I'm not his best friend, but we spent a couple of weeks together at the Synod, and I got to know him. It's a perfect choice. He is humble, reserved, a man of few words, very modest, very smart, respected by everyone in the Vatican, and I think if he weren't American, he would have been on the top of everybody's list, so it was something of a surprise.
Tell me, you are a member of the Jesuit order, which is of Pope Francis. He's of a different order to you, of the Augustinian order. What does that mean? What changes when an order changes within the Catholic Church? We talk about it a lot, but those outside of the Vatican, I don't think understand what it means.
Well, Francis was the first member of a religious order to be Pope for years, and so most people come up through the diocesan system, parish priest that people know. It means that you take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. You live in community. So he would have lived very simply, and he also had spent a lot of time overseas in Peru. I was surprised they chose another member of a religious order. I was surprised they chose someone from the United States, but the Holy Spirit works in all sorts of wonderful ways.
What does it mean practically for the Catholic faithful? What do they expect now? A new direction? He wore some of the sort of more, there was, the red cape with some gold embellishment. Pope Francis left all of that behind. Do you think that changes the optics of the church in some sense?
It could have been a nod to some of the more traditional people who like that. I think that was a great way of kind of sort of opening up to them. But, as well, his name, Leo XIV, is very significant. Leo XIII was the father of Catholic social teaching. So it shows his desire to be close to, we would assume, the poor, workers, labor. And he talked about synodality and continuing the work that Pope Francis did. So my sense is that he'll be his own man, of course. He's not Francis II. But he seems to be someone who was in line with Francis's way of looking at the church.
It's almost impossible not to ask about his relationship with the US administration. Like you say, you yourself are an American as well. It wasn't expected that it would be American. It was sort of an idea that sort of made him sort of not one of the contenders. How do you think he will interact with the Trump administration? What do you think happens there? Will he potentially be political in any sense?
Well, I think the Pope preaches the gospel, and if it's political, so be it. So if he talks about migrants and refugees or the poor, and that has a political implication, so be it. He tweeted out some things in his Twitter account that were critical of the Trump administration, but now he's Pope, right? And that's a different role, and we'll see what he does with it.
What do you make? You know a lot of the cardinals, you know this Vatican world, which is very secretive to a lot of those of us outside of it. What do you think he's going to do internally, and what do you think the cardinals are going to do to help him or support him as Pope?
That's a great question. Since he ran the Augustinian order, he ran it, and he ran the dicastery for bishops, which is the group that appoints the bishops. He's a good manager, too. So it's not as if he just comes in as this kind of charismatic guy or spiritual guy. He's a good manager. So I think they probably wanted someone, given the Vatican finances and the need to reform things, who could really run things. And I think in him, you have that.
There's always this pressure on dealing with historic sexual abuse, issues around family divorce, the LGBTQ plus community. Do you know which way he would go on that? And would you suggest or advise him in any particular direction?
Well, it's up to him to ask me for advice. I'm not going to suggest anything to him now. Look, I think he's someone who is smart, open to listening. He's run things. And again, he has a new role now. So I think it's important to look at who he was as a cardinal, but it's really important to give him the freedom to be the kind of Pope he wants to be.
Now, you yourself have quite a big following online, and you are one of the communicators of the Catholic Church. How important is that communication for the Catholic Church? Not just what it does, but how it talks about itself. And how do you do that?
Well, I try to just proclaim the gospel, talk about Jesus most of all, try to share church news. And I think to have someone who can speak to Catholics in an American accent in the United States is going to be a big deal for American Catholics. That's something we've never had before. So that's very exciting.
Father James Martin, thank you so much for joining us on Deutsche Welle. So that's one impression of the new Pope. As you heard, there was a lot of surprise when Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, was announced. But now he has to get on with working the reforms of the Church that he promised in his opening speech, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Probably an inaugural Mass coming a week on Sunday.
Very insightful information there. DW's Jack Paddock reporting from Vatican City. Thanks so much.